Welcome back to the Runaways channel. I'm joined by Daniel Rutkowski, fresh off of his top four finish at Flesh and Blood First Worlds tournament.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
We're going to talk about the deck that we prepared for Worlds for Classic Constructed, Phi. And we did a deck tech on the channel before for our U.S. Nationals list, so we made a couple of updates, and we just wanted to kind of go over the thought process behind that and some of the card choices that we brought for Worlds. So the first thing is the equipments package. This is mostly the same equipments that we brought to Nationals. One of the main differences is that we're not playing AB3 anymore against Icelander. Actually, the Null Rune Robe is only in there, I think, for Kano.
Yeah, I just had an extra slot, and it seemed like some number of people might play Kano to try and snipe people without ABA again.
Yeah.
So I just filled it with the robe. It's kind of our least needed spot in that matchup.
Yeah. Crown of Providence is in. This is probably a choice that we needed to do some more testing. Originally, we had it in for Oldham, but I think that we didn't have like a really solid strategy against Oldham at the tournament.
Yeah, I think we had the matchup close to like a 50-50 and kind of accepted that and focused elsewhere.
Yeah, I think moving forward, I would probably play Link's Furnace against Oldham. Crown of Providence can get cut for something else. Mask and Momentum and Pouncing Links are still both in. However, I think the thought process behind how we play the deck is like a little bit different from how we positioned it for US Nationals. I think US Nationals was very much primarily a Mask and Momentum based deck with like a Link's backup, and now it's kind of like the opposite.
Totally agree there. Before we were on like the go first and mask every turn, block efficiently plan. Now we're kind of just on the we're gonna go faster than our opponent in the aggro matchup plan.
Yeah, and so a couple of reasons why this is, I think when LSS banned Pulse of Eisenloft, it sped the format up a little bit. Decks, I think, in general, were like a little bit greedier in terms of how they approach stuff. And so I think we could also afford to be a little bit greedier with how we built our deck. We didn't need to play as many cards that were focused on a more mid-range plan, and we could just like go a little bit more in on combo.
Yep. I think the Briar and Icelander matchups were a big factor for the mass choice as well. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think we were expecting a lot of Briar at US Nats. Like, we kind of knew that it was not the best matchup if they have Trom
Yeah.
with their current build or previous build rather. And of course, Icelander was new there, and testing the Lynx combo plan kind of proved to be the best in that matchup.
All right, so let's go over the kind of main deck choices. These are basically the cards that are always in the deck pretty much no matter what. For the most part, it's pretty standard. The only main difference from the previous list is that we're playing Spreading Flames instead of Soaring Strike. I think we added one or two blues from the US Nationals list. So now I think you're playing 15 blues main deck. I was playing 16 blues. Uh, Not really sure what the best number is, but it's somewhere around there. One of the main reasons to play a higher blue count is because you really don't want to brick in a faster format. Most of Fi's power cards do cost resources. So if you want to play like Spreading Flames, Flame Call Awakening, Art of War, like you need to have a blue ideally. And so we wanted to add a little bit of consistency as well as being able to play This Round's on Me in the deck. So that I think is the other key piece of tech that we decided to include for Worlds.
Yeah, I think this round's on me kind of just wins the mirror if they don't also have one to answer back, especially going first. You kind of more or less skip their turn. You end up taking just a couple damage, have easy blocks if they're playing momentum, and then you get to have all the tempo from there.
Yeah, so to kind of just go over what This Round's on Me does, it's a non-attack action. It's a blue, blocks 3. So base stats are just like pretty decent inclusion overall. It reduces each attack that targets you on the next turn by 1 power. So usually when you're playing a 5 mirror, the chain probably goes like maybe 6, 7 wide. Especially if you give them an extra card, but like without giving them an extra card, it goes at least like 6 wide. So when you play this rounds on main, you give him an extra card, and you are doing like -7. It outweighs the extra card that you give him for the most part. And is kind of like an Art of War, but in reverse.
Agreed. And we're definitely like sacking a couple percentage points into like Guardians and Gotal decks. Just having an unplayable blue basically, where it
Hmm.
can only pitch and block 3.
Right.
But we definitely felt it was well worth it. Because in those matchups, that's usually what you want your blues to be doing anyway. I think it's also worth noting we do have 3 blue snatch where I think we had 0 at nationals.
Oh, yeah.
I think it has to do with what you're saying about the format being faster, just having more high impact cards. And I think the blues are actually like with Shuko triggers, like basically at the power level of a red card anyway.
Yeah, so I think at Nationals we were playing like Lava Vein Loyalty
Yep.
and Brand with Cinderclaw, and those just kind of got cut. I think we just decided that we just wanted to be at if it's a blue, it has to have 2 power. So if your Shuko procs it, then it's attacking for 3, ideally, or it's like and should block 3, or if it's like Snatch, it has a kind of powerful hit effect. So a Snatch, if it hits even a blue one, if it's attacking for 3, is worth about like 6. So just in general, trying to play, I guess, like a little bit greedier. Like I found that in the previous build, I just like never wanted to play Lava Vein Loyalty blue, and blue Brand with Cinderclaw sometimes was useful, but I think we added some cards, and we'll go over it in a second, that increase the consistency of the deck to find starters.
I think also worth noting, we were only playing 2 Phoenix Flames this time into any aggro decks. Basically any matchup where you don't expect it to go more than, I don't know, say 5 rounds. We
Yeah,
typically would side out a Phoenix Flame just to find our damage quicker.
yeah, and I want to credit this, I think, to a lot of the other five decks that I was kind of taking a look at after U.S. Nationals. I was pretty firmly in the always play 3 Phoenix Flames no matter what camp, but I think that after thinking about the aggro mirrors a little bit more, how short the game is due to cards like Masked Pouncing Links, it made more sense that you just want to kind of reduce your chances of drawing the Phoenix Flame, especially because if you draw a Phoenix Flame within like a 4 turn, 5 turn game, the impact is a lot higher than in longer games.
We were pretty firm on having to though, because the second one unlocks a lot of the combo potential with like spreading flames and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think Flame Call Awakening as well is like one of your best cards to play during Art of War, and so if you don't play at least 2 Phoenix Flames, that card just doesn't really do anything. Kind of moving on to our sideboard. I think this is pretty much geared more towards like mid-range oriented cards. I think the only ones that we actually play in the aggro matchups would be either Lightning Strike or Command and Conquer. Not
Yeah,
like
they kind of swap.
yeah, Command and Conquer is not a super powerful card in the format because a lot of the decks play Crown of Providence, and then Oldhim plays Crown of Seeds. But I think when we were testing, we found that it was super high impact and 5 mirrors, and we thought that there was going to be a lot of fives at Worlds, and so anything that you could do to get like a edge in that matchup was worth the slot.
I also play both into Oldhim, into Guardian really, because they're both block 3s. They're both like extremely flexible, and those are matchups where you're not sure exactly how many cards you get to use every turn.
Yeah.
And the CNC is kind of a nice tool to say to force them to cycle their arsenal. Like usually you don't get to destroy it, but it says you don't get to play that big attack you were hoping to set up.
Yeah, agreed. In Lightning Strike, I think we used to play against Fi. We decided to cut it in favor of Command and Conquer just because of how fast the games were. Sometimes a Lightning Strike is really awkward, especially on your Art of War turns.
Yes.
Command and Conquer can also be a little bit awkward, but I think Pouncing Links fixes some of those issues. We'll talk about that in a second when we go over some of the combo lines. This is the Razor Reflex. I forgot to mention the Energy Potion and the Razor Reflex. I think mostly for like the slower matchups against the ice decks. It either lets you set up like Art of Wars against Oldhim, or into Icelander you just want like additional blues or I guess protection against Aether Ice Veins.
I think there's consideration in the 5 mirror too of playing some number of epots if you're going first, but I didn't actually decide to.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where they're really good if you draw them towards the beginning of the game and really bad if you don't.
I think we missed the sync belows too. I was only playing those against Bravo and Dervinthia. How
Hmm.
about you?
I think I would play like 2 against Viserai just because of how much Mavian Skies is important to that matchup, but
Mm.
I think that's about it.
Oh, I will say I only got to play against one Oldhim, which was Isaac's deck. And previously I didn't like sync below in the matchup, but the way that the Oldhims at World seemed to be built was more just big damage heavy.
Yeah.
I think the syncs might have actually been better there than I had expected.
This is the combo package. Uh, 2 Rise from the Ashes, 2 Salt the Wounds, 2 Yellow Belittles, 3 Art of Wars, the third copy of Spreading Flames, Yellow Brand with Cinderclaw, and the third Phoenix Flame. So all these things help you kind of raise the overall ceiling of your potential turns. One of the best cards that you could Art of War is actually Rise from the Ashes because you get the +3 bonus, and then the card that you're banishing is kind of like a bonus card from playing Rise. Uh, Salt the Wound, I think, was kind of key for us to get an edge against Briar and then also against other Phis, just because you can fetch it off of Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, usually for about like 7 or 8 damage.
Those matchups are really just about math and getting to the number that makes your opponent block first. So the extra like +1 or 2 that Salt offers actually makes a pretty big impact there.
Yeah, +1 or 2 can translate into like a card at the end of the game.
Exactly. Yep.
Before when we were only running Lava Bursts, realistically the highest that it would get to would be like 7 on an Art of War turn. But if you have an Art of War with Salt the Wound, if you hit like 5 times with the Shuko, then it's coming in for 8, potentially 9 if you get like Flame Call Awakening or something. It just like increases the ceiling of your deck quite a bit.
Yep. You can also use Brand just before it and get an extra damage there with Spreading Flames.
Yeah. Belittle is always good to help fuel your turns. Also, when we were playing Five Mirrors, Yellow Belittle is actually quite good as a tutor off of Mask of the Pouncing Lynx as well. For the most part, when you are playing Fi, usually you only need about, I think, 4 resources is like the cap, where you would spend like maybe 1 resource on something like an Art of War, and then 1 resource on like a Spreading Flames or like a Mounting Anger, 2 on your weapon. And then so 4 resources kind of pays for your turn, but when you play a Belittle and you also have a blue, you have kind of 2 extra resources. And so grabbing the Belittle lets you kind of convert those 2 extra resources into playing something like Command and Conquer. If you didn't grab the Belittle off of the Pouncing Lynx, then you could have just played the Command and Conquer anyways, and then you miss out usually on like a Sword Swing and a Phoenix Flame. So without a Belittle, Command and Conquer the card usually provides about 2 damage plus the hit effect. But if you fetch the Belittle, then you basically get like the Belittle damage plus a Phoenix Flame plus a weapon for the most part. So with Shuko, then it ends up also adding to about like 7 additional damage onto the turn because you get 3 from the Belittle with Shuko plus 3 from the weapon and 1 from the Phoenix Flame that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to swing if you wanted to do something disruptive. And it's just like one of these plays. If you do an Art of War and you don't have a blue, so the blue is worth about like 4 or 5 damage. These like little things just makes it so that having Yellow Belittle is actually quite good in a deck that plays Mask of the Pouncing Lynx.
Yeah, I think the main purpose of the Yellow Belittle and Yellow Brand is just for Pouncing Lynx in aggro matchups, and just like you're saying, it's so you don't stumble. Like it's so you can get to your Rupture trigger on Lava Burst and that kind of thing. On those like critical turns where you're pushing to start taking cards. I will say though, I only play one Yellow Belittle
Hmm.
in the combo package. The second one is, I think, only there for Icelander.
Yeah.
I value Belittle's pretty high in that matchup to kind of push through disruption late in the game.
I think if we maybe like adjusted the numbers a little bit, potentially we would even go up to 3 Yellow Belittles against Icelander.
Yep, agreed.
And that's pretty much it. I think overall the small changes that we made, just in terms of things like cutting Soaring Strike, adding Spreading Flames, cutting a lot of the attack reactions, only having the Razor Reflex for Oldhim and
Mhm.
Icelander, uh, shift the focus of the deck a little bit more towards always playing Pouncing Links.
Yeah, agreed. I think the just noting on the Razor Reflex, it has a little fun kind of bonus when you're in top cut and deck list are shared that it kind of forces every opponent to consider that that is a card in your deck that could have been presented.
Right. In general, the game plan against any deck that's not Icelander or Oldhim is to try to end the game within about four turns, four I would say. Like 4 turns of relevant game action.
I think except for Trinity and Bravo as well.
Oh yeah, true.
Those I intend to have quite a grindy game against.
Mask of Momentum really only comes in I think against Dromai and also I think against Bravo.
Yep, agreed.
Which is pretty different from how we had kind of positioned the deck for U.S. Nationals. I don't know. What are your thoughts, kind of overall, on the choices that we made after the event? Now that the event is over, do you think that there's anything that you would adjust moving forward?
Good question. No, I don't know. I think I was really happy with everything we presented here. I think we had solid game plan into each matchup. I think I was kind of happy to have the Northern Robe because there was a Kano or two hanging around at the top for a couple of rounds.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been the third yellow belittle to make the Icelander matchup a little bit better. Maybe that's a better decision.
Yeah, I think maybe the
Um,
Crown of Protection can be the third yellow belittle as well, or
yes,
the
you
Crown of
could
Providence.
also yes, agreed. You could also consider swapping those two for um different blue block three that attacks. If you want to be able to not play this round on me into matchups where it's not very good.
Yeah,
I think you get it's a pretty small percentage bump you get there, but it's certainly more than zero. But yeah, no, overall I was very happy with it. I was having like I understood why Rise from the Ashes is good from like a theoretical perspective, but in my early testing, like it just never played out to show that value, and it was kind of more clunky
right.
than good most of the times. But I kind of just trusted you and the rest of the team, and in several games at Worlds, it like significantly overperformed in those scenarios of picking up the flame for Art of War and being being the card that gives Blaze go again when I wouldn't have that otherwise. Came up pretty often and was pretty high impact.
Yeah, I think one thing that I would maybe do moving forward, the Fly deck that you played in the quarterfinals was
Mhm.
playing Engulfing Flame Wave, and that's a
Yeah,
card that I think that we had tried. It was in my U.S. Nationals list, and I think the card itself is pretty strong. When we were doing some of the test games, like I think that card itself is like strong enough to kind of like tip the scales back in the favor against like Pouncing Links, or even like within a Pouncing Links deck. You
Mhm.
can do something like grab a yellow belittle to be able to pay for the engulfing flame wave. And so I think that I might try to fit one or two flame waves in.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Other than that, I don't know. I think that the deck is quite strong. I think the main weakness of the deck is just like if you play against some of the more like rogue decks, I think like Ranger or Dorinthia can have pretty decent matchups just due to kind of how their equipments or cards line up with either disrupting your plan or being able to just like threaten value that you don't compete with as well.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think moving forward after Dynasty comes out, some of those classes did get support. Like one card that I think could kind of not like ruin your day, but make like help the trade is like if you play against the aggro dash and they play the harpoon card against you, and ripping like one card out of your hands actually can do quite a lot for them in the race situation. Like pulling a either like a blue or like a starter out of your hand.
Yeah, totally agreed. Can be very disruptive at the wrong time.
So have to see like what the impact of Dynasty is. I think we're going to be doing a event recap uh, in the future, as well as we're going to be making some more videos that kind of just like focus on, I guess, like preparing for the game after Dynasty. There's quite a long break, so we'll try to upload some maybe more like tutorial or like gameplay videos to help everybody get up to speed before next year's events.
For anyone who kind of left me comments or talked to me during the event, I just really appreciated everybody's support during my run. It was super fun and exciting, and yeah, hope we helped you guys a little bit with this video. Feel free to leave questions in the comments. We'll definitely respond to those for a while.
We're gonna hopefully set up a rematch between you and Michael Hamilton.
That would be fun. I'm in.
All right. So see you guys on the next video. Keep an eye out. We're gonna have more stuff coming out fairly regularly since Worlds is now over.